Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Northwest Leicestershire series. There's 31 parishes here based around the towns of Colville and Ashby de la Zouch. Which one are we in today? Welcome back to Northwest Leicestershire again, people, where the early morning fog, which you saw in the last episode, Early Come Langley, is now starting to burn away and the sun is starting to come up, and that's a really good thing in this one because there's plenty I want to highlight in this particular village. And it's not just this village that falls within the parish, there's also an area called Grace Dieu, which is to the south of it, that's got a priory and a football academy, amongst other things. This is the parish of Belton. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Belton, Fire Village. Okay everyone, this week we're in Belton, a parish which has totally won me over. Having never been here before, relatively speaking, I didn't know what to expect fully, but upon leaving I just simply didn't want to go. I love it. Belton is a moderately sized village that's roughly halfway between Ashby de la Zouch and Loughborough. It's the second time we've been to a Belton on the channel. The first time was back in North Lincolnshire. Its name means farm or settlement close to a beacon or funeral pyre, or more simply, fire village. The parish also includes the hamlet of Grace Dieu to the south, which has more than its fair share of landmarks, all in a cluster around the ruins of a priory. It's that area which made me fall in love with the place, but Belton Village isn't bad either. It has all the usual village amenities like a pub, a shop, a school, a village hall and a church, but it's also got something unusual. That would be a maypole, which towers over the broad market square in front of the church. There are several lovely cottages and other buildings that caught my eye, including an old chapel on Long Street and a toll house opposite on Grace Dieu Lane. It's one of those villages where you just don't know where to start. Let's put Belton, the Leicestershire flavoured one, on the map. We start our walk at Tollgate Cottage in the southwestern corner of the village. Sited on a crossroads, it was one of the original toll gates into the village. It sits on Grace Dieu Lane, a bendy and undulating road which runs to the hamlet of the same name. That falls within Belton's boundaries, and we'll see it later. Opposite, on Long Street, is a former Baptist chapel. This was one of the earliest nonconformist chapels in Leicestershire, built in 1813. Originally it was a low building, but it was raised in 1900 to stop the congregation being distracted by carriages going through the toll gates opposite. Let's head up Long Street now, and its name is definitely not inaccurate. It's a long old road. During the 19th century, and likely before, the most common occupation here was agriculture. This is more than likely due to Belton's surroundings, which are mostly arable land. It's still used as such today. Other jobs may not have existed back then, meaning there was a limited number of professions for people to go into. Agriculture was dominated by males, whilst females often worked in domestic services. Belton is a commuter village now. Here's a bus stop. From here, you can get the number 129 to Loughborough or Ashby. Longstreet has some awesome houses. This is Thrieve House, a fine 3-storey Victorian residence, as is Mitten House opposite. Close by was a street called Tyler's Row, which had a group of 8 18th century cottages, all of which were thatched. Tyler's Row may also have been the site of a village lockup. In 1924, they were all destroyed by fire, and now the only thatched building left is this one. That's a nice little cottage though, right? Pretty much at the centre of Longstreet now, here's another old chapel. This one was for the Wesleyan Methodists, and it was built sometime before 1849. Now, like all good-sized villages, there's a shop in Belton. That too is on Longstreet, and here it is. Next door is the Queen's Head, which has been a pub for well over 200 years. This, though, is the reason why Belton lost its annual horse fair, granted to the village by Henry III in 1221. In the 1960s, it was in this very pub where, believe it or not, a horse dealer bit off the ear of a villager. That was enough to put an end to the fair, and it's never been held since. As Longstreet reaches its end, we see the tall grey facade of the manor house, which dominates the junction with the ancient marketplace. This building used to be the George Hotel, a coaching inn which was built in 1753. There was another pub too called the Cock and Mittens at one time. In front of it is one of the few remaining freestanding maypoles in the country. Every year, May Day celebrations see school children dance around it and crown a May Queen, usually a girl from year 6. They dress in traditional costume. Girls wear white dresses and boys wear white shirts, red ties and grey shorts, and they all process through the village to the sounds of an accordion. This tradition goes back hundreds of years. The marketplace also has this little memorial garden which is kept looking nice with some pretty floral displays. Look closely and you may spot a plaque which commemorates Captain David Hargreaves, a loyal member of the Belton Gardening Club. Supposedly there were stocks and a whipping post in this area centuries ago. These days there's a parish notice board instead. Let's get Belton marked off that northwest Leicestershire list. We have 24 to go. Rounding off the marketplace is the War Memorial. Behind that is the Old Vicarage, Grade 2 listed and now 2 separate houses. Well, I've only been here for 20 minutes and I already love the place. It is absolutely gorgeous, is Belton. And of course, the weather's helping. The blue sky, the sun, that always brings out the best in a village. But trust me, I think so far I have a favourite village now in northwest Leicestershire. So far, it may change. It may change. Right, next is the church, which is towering above me here on Vicarage Lane. Literally, because the tower and the spire, they are really quite tall. So, let's have a look at this next. St John the Baptist Church stands on the highest point of the village overlooking the marketplace. It's built in the early English style and consists of a nave, a chancel, a clerestory, a south porch and a tower with a spire and 3 bells. The whole building was restored in 1850 and 1877, but it originally dates from the 13th century according to a document dated 1222. Its most notable feature is in the north aisle, where there's a grave slab that belongs to Roesia de Verdon, the foundress of Grace Dieu Priory. There's more on her and the Priory in a bit. Although locked here, the church is open every day. Now we're on Church Street. This 3-storey house is number 9 and it used to be an off-licence which sold beer through a small window onto the pavement. Where this green is now used to be a horse pool. It stocked fish, but its main use was to wash cartwheels to prevent them from shrinking. It was filled in sometime in the 20th century. Church Street also once had a brewery and a malt house. Old photographs exist online which show a huge industrial chimney near the church, believed to be part of it. We've now reached the entrance to the playing fields, and it's time to talk football. The local football team play here. They're called Belton Villa and they're members of the Leicestershire County Football League. This, their ground, is simply known as the Rec or the Recce. For years, the club's most influential member was Billy Levine, who was involved with many other local teams, but his heart was always here. He died in 2020. Villa have a junior section called the Owls, but aside from that, there wasn't exactly a plethora of information out there about them. Nice ground though. The playing fields also have all the usual facilities, like this playground, for example. Now we're off down School Lane. Previously known as Back Lane, this was the location of the village school, built in 1843. The school's records paint a grim picture of 19th century education. Reading, writing, arithmetic and scripture were most important. Learning was by rote, with harsh disciplines enforced. Education is a lot better these days. The school still exists, but it's not here. It would eventually move to a new site on Sadler's Wells, and we'll catch that shortly. On the other side of the road is the old school house, and nearby to both buildings is a communal hub, Belton Village Hall. The Village Hall was built in 1964, and its facilities are constantly being improved for the benefit of its users. It's a popular hall, used by not only people from Belton, but also those from other surrounding villages. Check out this awesome mosaic on the wall, by the way. There's some effort gone into that. It's a large enough venue to cater for weddings, christenings, theatre productions and children's parties. Fundraising activities for a variety of groups, sports clubs and charities take place here too. Next, it's the residential areas of Sandhills Close and De Verdon Avenue, and that calls for a mini montage. Now on Sadler's Wells, here we have the current Belton Primary School. It's still small despite the size of the village, but it's proud of its history and its heritage. So much so, in fact, that it even published a book entitled 160 Years of Belton School. I've included a link below where you can buy a copy if you wish. An about turn now, and we're heading into Wilson Court, a collection of much newer properties that sits on the end of Sadler's Wells. This has within it Belton's former branch of the British Legion. The hall is currently boarded up and a little forlorn, but there are some plans to redevelop it. And there's a plaque on the wall on one of those houses in Wilson Court that says that the area was built in 1992, about right when you consider the style of the houses they were. Now from here, it's a simple case of walking straight back to the start along this road, which runs all the way back to Grace Dieu Lane. When we get to Grace Dieu Lane, we're heading towards Grace Dieu. There's still quite a bit we have not covered yet in this episode. Belton's a lovely village, but Grace Dieu has some interesting bits and bobs. So let's go and see what they are. Okay, so we found our way to Grace Dieu. To be fair, it's very easy to get between Belton and Grace Dieu. All you have to do is drive down Grace Dieu Lane for about 1.25 miles, and you eventually come to this junction here, which is defined by a very deep stream, actually. That's quite deep, that. It looks crystal clear, but pretty dangerous. I certainly wouldn't want to be stood up in that, because it would probably be covering my whole body. That's how deep it is. Anyway, from this junction, you can see over there Grace Dieu Priory, and we can walk to that. There's a little path over there. There's a bridge and a path through that wood. It'll take us towards the Priory. Let's go and check that out. I fell in love with this area and I didn't want to leave. Grace Dieu is a magical place for many, many reasons. This is a cycle route called the Grace Dieu Trail, which, if followed from the road, will take you into the huge Grace Dieu Wood. We're off into that in a moment. It's part ancient and part regenerated woodland. Off the path is an iron sculpture. This is the Mother Superior, sometimes known as the Iron Madonna, or in more recent times, Rusty Mary. The statue was created by Northamptonshire-based sculptor Mike Ivans to mark the opening of the cycle route to Turrilog. Into the woods now. In here are some bits of industrial history. The short-lived Charnwood Forest Canal once ran through here on its journey between Thringston and Nanpanton. There are no visible remains, but there is a viaduct which once carried the railway line that replaced it. The 6 arches of Grace Dieu Viaduct carried the Charnwood Forest Railway, sometimes known as the Bluebell Line, as the flower grew along its length during the spring. Its primary purpose was to carry coal, but it did have passenger services until 1931. Grace Dieu was one of the line's 3 halts. Running under the viaduct is Grace Dieu Brook, a gentle stream with charming waterfalls. It has to be said, these woods are like something out of a fairy tale. Lush and green, they are so peaceful and welcoming, although they are supposedly haunted. frequent paranormal phenomena is sometimes attributed to the proximity of the priory and a possible pagan significance attached to the site. The priory itself is supposedly haunted by a ghost called the White Lady. Now we come to a path which leads directly to the priory ruins. Let's go and have a look at them and see if the White Lady is in. Grace Dieu was an independent Augustinian priory founded by Roger de Verdun sometime between 1235 and 1241. It was dissolved in 1538. It was dedicated to the Holy Trinity and St Mary. Its nuns called themselves the White Nuns of St Augustine. This is unique because it's thought there were no other houses of their order in the country. It had some unusual practices. For example, the nuns were forbidden to ever leave the priory's precincts. The house also had an attached hospital. Today, the site is managed by the Friends of Grace Dieu Priory, who keep it open to the public for free. Let me tell you something, folks. We're now 7 episodes into northwest Leicestershire, and I think already this is probably going to be the best of the bunch. Of all the 31 or 33, I can't remember which one it is offhand, that this has. This is so good. I've just felt magical. Ever since I got to Grace Dieu and walked around the woods, saw the viaduct, the river, the priory, this area is just absolutely stunning. I can't get over it. It's so good, so good. Bring yourself here. It's completely free to explore, and you can park where I did at the end of Grace Dieu Lane there. You know, you don't have to pay for any parking. It's well worth your time and effort to come and explore Grace Dieu. And you know what? We actually haven't finished with this yet, because Grace Dieu has something else which I'm going to drive to in a moment. It's a football academy, and it's just to the east of where the priory is. So let's make our way back to the car, if I can prise myself away from these ruins, and we'll go and see it to finish. Oh yeah, there is one more thing I want to do while I'm here at the priory. On the way down to the priory, I noticed that to get across the river, you can actually use these stepping stones. These bring you out close to the Mother Superior, so I'm gonna walk over these to get back. It's quite shallow here, so even if I don't manage to do this on the stepping stones, I'm not gonna get my feet too wet. So hopefully this will be okay. It's a bit muddy. Whoop. This is very difficult to do with the camera in your hand, let me tell you. That's it. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the other side. I'm going to turn the camera off and get to the other side, because at the minute I feel like I'm going to fall in the water. So see you in a sec. Not bad. I just missed the last step, so I've got a slightly wet left foot at the moment. But that's one way to get to the priory, by using these stepping stones. And like I said, this comes out near the Mother Superior, who is somewhere, over there somewhere. So yeah, right, on to the football academy. The football academy is to the east of the woods, and it occupies another very historic site, Grace Dieu Manor. It's a 19th century country house which is linked to the priory. When Grace Dieu was dissolved, it was granted to Sir Humphrey Foster, who immediately conveyed it to John Beaumont. He then made it his residence. Centuries later, after passing through the Beaumont family line, the old priory buildings began to fall into ruins, and so a new house was built 300 yards to the south. It was a Tudor-style building designed by London architect William Railton. For much of the 20th century, it was in the possession of the March Phillips Delisle family. In 1972, the family sold the house and it became Grace Dieu Manor School. That was the new home of a private Catholic school founded in 1933 by the Rosminians as a preparatory school for Ratcliffe College. In turn, it closed in 2020 and was placed on the market. Now called Grace Dieu Manor Park, it's the base of FCV International, a football academy who staged its first camp in August of 2022. And that's it. What a great place, and now this is my all-time favourite parish. See you soon. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.